It's that time of year again when the university academic year starts. Students will be returning to the halls of academia in the hope of getting an endorsement to secure a higher income in the post-university job market. All the first-year plebs will turn up in this year's latest fashion outfits. The teen girls will be adorned with full battle makeup and high heels. The second and third years will all rock up in track pants and t-shirts and sneakers because they're the ones who successfully learn time management and appropriate footgear in their first years. Students will be busy allocating spaces in their timetables for the variety of lectures and tutorials that they have to complete in accordance with their selected course of study and the choice of papers they've taken on. In an inexplicable display of hatred for white people, Canterbury University has decided to make lives more difficult by allocating tutorial time slots instead of having students choose their timetable commitments in the usual way. Canterbury thinks that apartheid is a good idea and is allocating certain tutorial time slots to prioritise people of Polynesian race and leaving others, I'll just call them white people, to choose from what's left over after the Polynesians get first dibs. Now, if you've never studied at a New Zealand university before, this won't seem like such a big deal, but for the students who are affected by these mandatory allocations, it can create chaos. You might have a typical university week in which you need to timetable 8 to 12 hours of 1-hour lectures and 4 to 6 hours of 1-hour tutorials. And you might have to wrangle in 4 shifts delivering food for Uber. That can put your entire academic year in chaos if the university starts limiting your choices about when and where you can attend lectures and tutorials. And not only are these practical problems with Canterbury's modus operandi, most reasonable people would consider apartheid to be racist and would question why Canterbury University hates white people so much. It seems strange that the same lefties who protested against apartheid in 1981 when the South African Springboks toured now openly promote apartheid in New Zealand universities. This is what Canterbury messaged its students.
Note that tutorials 0 to 13 and 16 are currently closed for self-allocation. This is because these tutorials will prioritize first filling with Polynesian students via auto-allocation to help facilitate segregation, with the goal being to virtue signal deference to principles of Wanaungatanga and Manakitanga based on each student's race.
Whānau-tanga is a Māori concept that refers to the sense of connection, belonging and kinship that comes from building relationships. It's about making people feel included, valued and safe. Manakitanga is a Māori value that means showing respect, care and generosity for others. So it can be concluded from the counterfactual that Canterbury University thinks that Polynesians will be disrespected, uncared for, treated selfishly, excluded, devalued, made to feel unsafe, made to feel disconnected, alienated and estranged if white people are allowed to attend classes with them. Therefore, apartheid is justified. At least this goes some way to explaining why the university hates white people so much. This is the state of our universities. This is the mindset of state employees who work for us, paid for by us, in our universities. And then we wonder why the graduates from these universities who move on and progress to be Supreme Court judges busy themselves giving away our nation to Māori tribes. Now, if you think that this mindset among university staff is uncommon, think again. Where the ACT Party called out this apartheid on X social media platform, an academic from a different university weighed into the debate. Here's what the ACT Party said.
Another sad example of ethnicity-based social engineering at our universities. This time it is the University of Canterbury, trying to prevent race mixing within tutorial groups. First-year maths students trying to choose their tutorial time slots were told certain times were closed for self-allocation. The government is committed to delivering services based on need, not race. Universities are independent, but as taxpayer-funded entities they need to get the message that segregation is not acceptable.
Now let me introduce our academic contradictor, Dr. David Littlewood. Littlewood is a senior lecturer at Massey University. He has a number of soft short course qualifications, namely a BA, MA and a PhD, meaning he's very highly qualified at doing not much other than subjective academic postulation at a university or in public service. Under the Ardern regime, Littlewood received $300,000 of your money from our old friend the Marsden Fund. He wrote a book waffling on about New Zealanders being conscripted during the First World War. As far as can be ascertained, Littlewood, who arrived here from Britain in 2007, has not been given command of one of our few remaining naval ships. Fortunately, Judith Collins has recently removed the humanities grift from the Marsden Fund, so people like him can no longer use taxpayers' earnings to fund academic masturbation. This is what Littlewood asked on social media in response to ACT calling out Canterbury University's apartheid system.
The government has committed to delivering services based on need, not race. But all the students will still be getting the same service. They will all attend a tutorial, just at a different time. Please explain how certain students will be getting a different service to others.
Littlewood's petition for an explanation leads to one of two conclusions. Either he's gaslighting, or, despite his post-nominals, he's as thick as an English brick. The controversy is not about the substance of the tutorial. Sure, all races will receive the same content, but what ACT called out was the delivery service, not the service being delivered. Let me take you through this, David. There are two guys lost in the desert, one black, one white. They're both exhausted and almost dead, and if they don't get water within the next few hours, they'll die. But fortunately, David Littlewood happens to be driving his Land Rover through the outback and sees the stranded men. Even more fortuitously, Littlewood has a couple of 1 litre bottles of water with him. So he stops, and holding the two bottles, he walks over and hands one to the black guy, who says to him, "Cheers, bro, you saved my life." Littlewood then turns to the white guy, holds up the second bottle and says to him, "I'll be back with this on Wednesday next week." Same service, different delivery. Get it, David? The same issue happened last year in regard to funding extra health services for Polynesians. The health services funded were aimed at removing barriers that Polynesians face to obtaining health services. But by health services, what was actually meant was paying for courtesy vans to get Polynesians to the doctors, because many of them are carless. When they did get to the doctor, they're given exactly the same service as anyone else presenting with the same symptoms. Can you see the difference, David, the difference between the service and the delivery of the service? And can you see the problem, David, that carless white people have exactly the same barrier to getting to the doctor as carless Polynesian people, but white people can't get delivered to the doctor's door in the Polywaka van? And Littlewood had already done enough to embarrass my Britishness and whiteness, but then when I explained to him that delivery was the issue, this is what he came back with in reply.
Yeah, the level of intelligence and sophistication in referring to a politician as raw willy wire titty is just off the charts.
So rather than advance a cogent counter-argument to the explanation he asked for and got, he resorts to a yeah but ad hominem attack. But I reckon that also backfired on my men. Who else had the intelligence to bastardize the name of one of New Zealand's most hated men, and with such articulate sophistication? Daniel Wiseman didn't buy Littlewood's feigned outrage.
Come on, man, that's hilarious.
If Littlewood hadn't already done enough to outshine Canterbury University's starring role in this week's video, he then followed up with something inexcusable. For anyone who's watched my previous content, you'll know my pet hate is appeals to self-authority. Whenever someone starts a sentence with "as a," you've lost me. Those two words means that you're going to rely on your status rather than the cogency of your argument. So when someone called into question Littlewood's intellect, this is what he came back with.
In many respects, no, I'm not. But I suppose I'd like to think that a PhD in history and role as an academic is indicative of at least some expertise when it comes to analysing political statements and knowing how universities work.
Well, I would have to agree with Raoul Duke's statement that David is not very smart. The appeal to his own authority is putrid grandiosity, and when I'm Prime Minister, that alone will be grounds enough for a deportation order. One of the first things that David failed on was identifying the issue. The issue was not the substance of the service, it was the delivery. Understanding and identifying issues is a crucial smart that all academics need to have. Secondly, trying to defend an indefensible position against an overwhelming opposition shows a serious lack of smarts, especially on social media and on a platform like X. On X, you have every rational conservative thinker on the planet who will shoot you down in a heartbeat if you try on this kind of woke gibberish. Finally, expat British academics such as David should maybe consider the state of Britain at the moment and how it got there. Stop inflicting your woke, socially corrosive ideology on others. PR whenuas like me don't want your neo-Marxist ideology here any more than any other New Zealanders do. Good luck to all the students starting a new year at university. If you can graduate with a degree, you've done well. If you can graduate with a degree and without being indoctrinated into neo-Marxist ideology, then you're exceptional, and we need you, and we don't care what your skin colour is. What do you think? Should we have apartheid in universities to ensure that hated white people don't make fragile Polynesians feel unsafe? What steps are needed to weed out the neo-Marxist ideology that promotes racism, apartheid and hatred to get our universities back into international standing? Leave a comment and let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, give us a like would you, and do click subscribe to be notified of new content as it drops. See you next time.